Here we are at New Hope Housing in Houston, Texas, and we're going to meet Joy, who runs this, and we'll find out a little bit more about it. Ooh, automatic doors. Hi, Joy. Very good.
Thank you for coming to visit us at 4415 Fair. We love having you
Sure.
here. Come on in and let me show you around a little
Sure,
bit.
of course. I'm excited to finally meet you. And in a gorgeous building.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, come on in.
Okay. All right.
We like to create a sense of place. Our buildings are at the nexus of architecture and nature.
Yeah.
And part of the art is to honor where a neighborhood has been.
Yeah.
So there'll be photographs from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s that are of this neighborhood and this spot.
Yeah.
And now we're a part of the neighborhood's history.
Yeah, that gives even more meaning to it, yeah. And you're here to stay.
We're here to stay. We build to last. We use top architects. We've won local, statewide, national, international awards for our properties, not just the architecture, but the entire development cycle and the useful purpose that it serves for an individual, because that's the most important part. That's what we're about. For the community, and then for the broader community of Houston and for the Houston region.
Yeah, you know, as we came here, we were sitting on those couches over there, and nobody really knew, but all your staff came by and said hi to the various people that were sitting out here, like they knew them personally, and I really enjoyed that.
They do know them personally.
Yeah.
And customer service is something that we very much emphasize.
Yeah,
There's no reason for us to have less customer service here than if you were paying $1,100 or $1,500 a month.
And even more than that, it felt more like family than, you know, I mean, it did to me watching it from a distance. It was like, hey, you know, it just felt
it's
really...
lovely for you to say. One of the things that happens in this building a lot, and of course, as you know, this is single-room occupancy housing.
Oh, yeah, I didn't
so
know
it's
that.
adults living alone on very low incomes, and many have been formerly homeless, and indeed chronic homeless, living on the street for a year or more. But that doesn't mean they don't have a family. So every day around the time that school lets out, there's a trail of children who come into this building who are, you know, staying with auntie or uncle or grandparents, or indeed maybe parents. And then at some hour they're picked up again and away they go. So we do have a family life here.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's good. So how are you funded? How is this?
Well, we're funded in a complex way, as most affordable housing is, Tony. So it's a public-private partnership. It's always led by the city. We can't get anything done without the city. We don't leave home without them. And I imagine it's the same way in San Diego. So the city is first, followed often, and we hope always, by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, an allocation of tax credits, and then Federal Home Loan Bank, and varying charitable foundations. Businesses and individuals who are kind enough to write us a check.
Yeah, we made a visit to the Houston Endowment. That office is incredible.
Well, they are, of course, our leading foundation funder. They're one of the largest foundations in the country. And Houston's very lucky that way, in that we have a long, rich history of philanthropic giving.
Well, it's a beautiful building, and anybody would be happy to live here, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so.
We don't have many in San Diego like this. We have a few, but we need more. That's our problem. We need more housing units, permanent housing units.
And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy to convince me that this would work. We were doing single-room occupancy housing, but we weren't doing permanent supportive housing, which implies that it's a street homeless population, that there are rental supports, and that there are robust wraparound services. We weren't doing that. And it was hard to convince me that it would work, and it was only when, I'll tell you what made the difference for me, it was when the city of Houston stepped up, when there was the political will to say that this is a priority for us. We're not going to put up with this any longer. We're going to do everything we can
Yeah.
so that we have a city, a compassionate city, and that we include all. And I'm very proud of Houston. I'm proud of Texas for this.
Yeah.
So we felt we needed to give it a try. I'm going to tell you what, it works.
Yeah.
Does it work for every individual who moves in? Is everyone successful? Of course not. But it works for most people.
Yeah.
And for those it doesn't work, as our Vice President of On-Site Operations loves to say, we help people find their next destination. We help them find a place that will work for them, help them pack their bags. We don't want an eviction on residents' records if there's anything we can do to prevent that. But mainly we want people to stay stably housed here. This is permanent housing. You can live here however long you'd like.
That's nice. Yeah, I think permanent is a word that where I live kind of bothers some people. They don't really, they have a, how did you deal with the issue of like building a building like this in a neighborhood? I mean, neighbors don't really want a permanent body of people that are poverty-stricken, homeless. It scares them. How did you get over that?
If you ever meet anyone who wakes up in the morning and wishes that New Hope Housing would come build a building next door to them, I want you to give me a call. It just doesn't happen. But once you get moving and once people realize the power of philanthropy and the power of political will and the number of people who have come together, and once they see a building such as this, you get something really lovely on the ground, then hearts and minds begin to change. Not always, but we have 7 buildings now. We have 2 properties under construction. More than $62 million worth of construction. And in California terms, that doesn't sound like much. You have to go times 3 to get that to make any sense in your language. And one of our properties we're doing now is supportive housing for families. So it's homeless and at-risk families.
There's some people that think that, you know, by giving people a permanent housing, that it's a giveaway, it's a freebie, and people are going to take advantage of that. What kind of people do you have living here, and do you see that happening?
We have all kinds of people living here. What they have in common is they're living alone and they have an extremely low income. The typical income here is less than $10,000 a year, even though you can have an income that's higher than that, as much as $35,000, and still live here. Typically, that isn't what we see. We see people who are elderly, people with a disability, whether it's physical or cognitive. There are people in recovery. There are the working poor. We have security guards who live in the building. We have people who work in warehouses. We have people who work at the downtown baseball and basketball stadium. Anyone who has a job with a small income. There are veterans. There are people on a teacher's pension, people on Social Security, whether it's Social Security disability or because they're elderly. We really haven't had an experience of large numbers of people who are riding the system, to be clear about it. We have people who truly need this support and this help, particularly those who are disabled. And realistically, not everyone is going to be able to have a full-time job or even a part-time job, depending on their health circumstance. But we have a number of people who work both part-time and full-time. And we help them get up on that curve and get back to work. People stay here, even though it's permanent, and you are welcome to be here as long as you would like. We have individuals who stay here generally around 24 to 30 months is a typical stay. The same as it would be in any apartment complex anywhere. And it's important to remember that this is not a social service program. Yes, we are housing plus services. That's really important, but the heart of it is that we're a place to live. We're an apartment complex. You sign a Texas Apartment Association lease when you move in here, a 1-year lease. And we have all of the same rules and regulations that any really expensive apartment complex would have. We're gentler with our tenants because we want to give people a second chance.
Yeah, of course.
We want to be sure to help them understand how to live a responsible life if they've fallen away from that,
Yeah.
and many have. But that doesn't mean they never had a responsible life.
Yeah,
It just means they fell away.
Yeah.
And our job is to help nudge them back.
Yeah, boy, that's amazing. I thank you for, even though I'm not from here, I thank you for what you do, because it's amazing.
Well, I thank you for coming and speaking to me. And you know, one of the things I hope you noticed when you came in here is we have a front desk that's staffed 24/7.
Yeah, I did.
That's because we know who's in this building at all times and
that's
how
wonderful.
long they've been here.
Yeah.
And we have rules about that too.
Yeah.
The door isn't just open for anyone to come and
That's a
kind of
safeguard.
perch here.
Yeah.
It's a safeguard for residents. And as one resident told me once, the thing he loved most about being here was, he said, when I come home, I know my stuff is going to be here. And I thought, wow.
I can relate to that.
I started laughing.
Yeah. Okay, so I know this is housing plus services. So let's say I moved in and I lost my job and wasn't able to pay my rent. What kind of services would you offer to help me with that?
Well, that's an important question because you've signed a Houston Apartment Association lease. So you're bound to pay your rent and you have a problem. And that's where we come in.
Yeah.
We have a social service staff and we have emergency rental supports that we can access. And we're careful about that.
Yeah.
Because you asked me a little bit earlier, are people riding the system?
Yeah.
We're careful about that. We come, we talk to you,
Yeah.
we assess your problem. And you have a valid problem,
Yeah.
Tony, you've brought to me.
Yeah.
You've lost your job. So we will help you see to it that you have the proper medical care, see to it that you have rental supports for short-term emergency assistance until you can get back on your feet.
Yeah.
Our case managers will be here to work on your life plan, to make sure that you have benchmarks and
Yeah.
that you know you can call on us. We won't force you to accept our services. We can't do that legally, and we wouldn't want to do that
Yeah,
because you're an individual with a life and opinions and desires of your own. We're here to facilitate what you want to have happen and to help guide the path.